How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome. You are listening to the TASL Fantasy Football Chat podcast. This is episode 7, and this is St. James's Day. Rob, how are we doing? It's good to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, it's good to be back again, another week, and Halloween week, and it was an absolute nightmare.
Bit of a shocker for us, wasn't it? Bit of a shocker. Yeah, I like what you've done there, but it's safe to say that neither of us have had a good week, and probably anybody that's been listening to us on a regular basis is probably quite pleased with this, because we've been doing, even at least one of us has been doing okay most weeks, but this week for the first time we've both had stinkers. We scored very similar points. I mean, I managed to muster a rather measly 40, and you found yourself on a not too much better 39. Well, definitely not better. It's worse, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
yeah, that was awful. Yeah.
I mean, you asked me where did it go wrong for me before we started this call, and the answer was pretty much from midfield backwards. I mean, if you just looked at my I mean, if you looked at my forward line and you saw that I had Ings, Kane, and Calvert-Lewin, people would go, "Oh, you probably had a half decent week then." No. So I mean, unfortunately, I had Foden and Jorginho, who played a combined minutes of about 13. And then Son and Mane blanked, and so I had a bit of a stinker. Yeah. And what compelled it all even more was that I had a 19-point haul on the bench. So
it's the ultimate slap in the face, isn't it?
It is. I mean, really, it's one of those where I could have maybe put Saka in. You know, Saka for Arsenal, I think. As the season goes on, I think he's going to start scoring more and more points, and at the price he's at, he's an interesting option. But I mean, that would have been really the only one, because I mean, I had Leno on the bench, and you know, Arsenal, they concede less goals now. They're looking a much better unit. We'll talk about the match a bit later on, but you know, I went for Martinez in goal, as well as Konza, and we all know how that ended when they played Southampton. So that wasn't ideal, and I think. My third sub, young Lamptey for Brighton, who, again, there's not many people that would have put him in away to Spurs. And so 9 points is obviously disappointing to see on your bench. But equally, if I had it the second time round, would I have done it any different? I'd probably be a bit of a fibber to say I would have, to be honest. I mean, how about you, Rob? What do you think? Where do you think it went wrong for you? I mean, apart from your pal Mohamed Salah, it was pretty awful all over, wasn't it?
Yeah, he lived up to his usual of just he's relentless. He just keeps bringing the points, doesn't he?
He did,
and that's why I've not removed him and put Mane in yet, because Mane's not had a particularly good. He's not been doing particularly well in terms of fantasy football, and I'm guessing in terms of how he's been playing for the club either. But yeah, the defense was just horrific. I think there's no way. You know, when you sat there watching, there's the everything that you possibly could hope for to go right, the opposite happened. So, you know, I've had Rodriguez. They didn't pick because he had a testicular problem. Mitchell, sorry, I shouldn't laugh. I should, because it's funny.
It's just showing our mental age that we're laughing at the word testicles. Yeah. And
then you got Mitchell, who has been gets 1 or 2 points, but the whole defect. Cody did okay. I mean, I was pleased I didn't put Sice in, because obviously he didn't start. But Martinez blanked for me. Mitchell blanked for me. I didn't have anyone on the bench of any note that could come in. Dunn and Sturridge don't really figure. And midfield, like you said about Foden, I mean, Costa came in for me for Rodriguez, but he had a terrible game. And the only one that really gave me the points was Salah, Calvert-Lewin and Ings. And even Calvert-Lewin, I was listening to the game thinking this... Oh, I don't know if he's going to get any chances here. I don't think he's going to
fortunate to pick up a couple of bonus points with that goal, I think. That's probably indicative of the quality shown in that game, to be honest. But
yeah,
I mean, let's get into it and start talking about some of the matches then, because it was an interesting week, I think. some some games with a lot of goals, and we started off on Friday night with a box office game of Wolves versus Crystal Palace, and I think there's a couple of takeaways from this. Really, obviously Wolves picked up the win, but like you mentioned there, I think there would be a few managers disappointed that Seiss didn't get the start. I kind of had the feeling that Seiss as this left wing back wasn't going to last. Not necessarily for the lack of quality he's shown while playing, but they've got good options in that wing back role. Obviously, they bought two players in Ait Nouri and Markal, and you just felt that one of them was eventually going to get the nod. And I felt the fact that they were playing young Max Killman in essentially Seiss's position, that he would probably hold his place. And you know, it's paid off for Nuno and Wolves and all the fans. They have been so good at the back so far. And, you know, again, they're looking like a real form team that knows what they're doing, that's asked to play a certain way. Everyone knows their roles and responsibilities. And you can see them having a really good run again this season.
Yeah, possibly. You're right. They're one of the few teams that have shown a consistency at the back, and them and Arsenal, which I'm sure we're going to come on to a bit later. Especially you being an Arsenal fan, and them
for
your sins having one of the best defensive records. But yeah, they're one of the few that have really seemed quite solid. Cody, I think, is playing really
fantastic. Well. England regular now, Rob. We got an international break moving forward. Is Southgate going to put him in?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know if he's good enough quality for international. It's the same with...
I think I'd rather have him than Maguire in at the moment, though. Maguire just looks full of mistakes and no confidence. So, interesting one. And maybe we can pick that up towards the international break. But yeah, so I mean, I think another big takeaway from this is that Podence, who... You know, I'd kind of bigged up Podence, and he ended up not making the cut after my wild card, but he got on the score sheet now, and you wonder whether he may now go on a little run. Unfortunately, I think with Podence that he's one of these players that isn't going to play 90 minutes very often. And so, you know, if you look at Calvert-Lewin, for example, you know, he picked up that injury time consolation, I guess, for Everton, but you wonder whether, you know, these kind of guys that are only playing 75 minutes a week on average and are going to be, you know, at risk of rotation, you know, is it the way to go? I mean, I can hardly talk because I had Foden and Jorginho who played less than 15 minutes between them.
Well, you got done over on the Jorginho one, didn't you? Because he'd been consistent player for Chelsea.
He had, and I maybe should have picked it up from the Champions League change, but it's one that you missed. I mean, Palace, they kind of, again, are just one of these teams who seem to almost, you never expect Palace to do well, and it surprises you when they do, but then it doesn't happen very often, and they end up being fine. They're a funny team, aren't they? Because they've got some good players there, and again, clearly Hodgson coaches them well, but it's usually a case of if Zaha doesn't perform to his peak, then they don't get a result. So it's an interesting one, and I noticed a few players that start bringing Zaha in. He is scoring a lot of points, and they'd have been disappointed with the fact he picked up a booking as well. But
because him and Grealish are roughly the same price,
right?
And they're both those type of players where they're just not. So I've done them last season. I had Grealish in for a while when he was relatively consistent, but Zaha's never been consistent for me. I don't know what it is about him. I just pick him at the wrong time.
Well, they've got an interesting run of fixtures coming up. They've got Leeds, Burnley, Newcastle, West Brom in their next 4 games. So I think, you know, now is possibly the time to jump on board any Crystal Palace players if you're going to. Because they've got a tough run over the Christmas and particularly going into the new year. But yeah, so I mean, it was an interesting game to start off. On the Saturday, we only had the 3 games. It kicked off with a narrow Man City win. You know, once again, Man City, again, they've picked up another 1-0 victory. Obviously, the same with when they played Arsenal not that long ago, and they've just obviously. They've only scored 1 goal in their last 3 Premier League games. Obviously, West Ham picked up the point last week. And it's slow but steady progress at the minute for them. I mean, De Bruyne still played quite deep. I think they are missing something when Foden's not playing. And arguably their best player of the season so far in Kyle Walker did the business for them. And I'm sure his parents weren't very happy about that, them being big Sheffield United fans. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? Is it a touch of what we've said about Liverpool quite often, is where they don't play amazing every game, but they just pick up the win?
Yeah, I think so. I still surprised that Man City haven't come out the blocks in a really aggressive way this season, considering what happened last year. Who played at the back for City? Because I didn't see it. Was it Aki again?
No, Laporte and Diaz were both in.
So they started to form a bit of a partnership now, and that Aki, I suppose, is...
You would imagine so, yeah. I mean, they're short with the money they've spent. You would think those guys will get the nod. I mean, you wonder whether in certain games Ake will come in at left back, but Cancelo seems to be trying to make that place his own at the minute as well, interestingly.
They just got such a... This is where we're talking about. They shouldn't be just... Again, I don't mean this about Sheffield United. They shouldn't be just beating Sheffield United 1-0.
No, especially with the way Sheffield United are playing so far this season.
Yeah, they're considering what they've been investing in the players. I mean, they just seem to... It seems to be left backs, right backs, and central defenders. They seem to just want to buy them all. I don't know.
It's an interesting one. And I mean, young Torres did all right playing up through the middle, but is he a goal scorer? I mean, he's certainly not a goal scorer like Aguero. I believe Jesus could be coming back soon for City. So I guess that's one to watch, because, again, he seems to be one of those strikers who, I mean, he had an exceptional goal to game ratio when he joined the club for quite a while. But he seems to be one of these players that goes in fits and bursts. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I mean, a team that didn't have any trouble scoring on the weekend was Chelsea. They picked up the 3 points to our number 1 relegation tip in Sean Dyche's Burnley. And Chelsea fans must have been a little bit disappointed when the game started, because obviously Pulisic pulled out of the starting lineup with an injury. But Timo Werner came in, and I think Ziyech got his first start in the Premier League. And they comfortably dispatched Burnley, really. And Ziyech and
keeper,
Werner.
Mendy as well.
Mendy was in. Yeah.
It's like everything's calmed down a little bit with it.
I mean, Mendy didn't have a save to make in the game. Let's put it into perspective. He didn't make one save. And Pope had to make 6 saves in a game where he picked the ball out of his own net 3 times as well. So, I mean, it was a convincing win. Ziyech could definitely be becoming an option for people, I think. I'm looking at if Jorginho is going to be sitting on the bench, I quite like the look of having a Chelsea asset in. They've got Sheffield United and Newcastle next, where you would think they're...
Well, Ben Chilwell's an option, isn't he?
He is. I'm still wary of the defence at Chelsea at the minute. Like I say, they're up against a Burnley team who haven't scored goals yet this season, and we've talked about their frailties and their lack of squad depth in the past, but Chelsea, I mean, maybe give them credit, because that's 2 clean sheets on the bounce for them. But equally before that, they conceded 3 against Southampton, who, obviously they are in form, Southampton, and Ings is like literally we're in love with Danny Ings, obviously. But I mean, I still feel like Chelsea is one to keep an eye on, like the watch list almost for me. I'm still not convinced. I'm sure lots of people are screaming at me saying Zuma, Chilwell, Ziyech, Werner, all these guys should be considerations for the team. And maybe, if Danny Ings is seriously injured, Werner does become an option. But equally, Frank seems to like rotating his players a little bit. Now, whether that's because they've got lots of competitions or whether that is just because with all these new players, he's still trying to find the right combination, I still feel like it's yet to be seen. And maybe after the international break, it'll become a bit clearer for managers.
We got Havertz there as well, who still he hasn't quite kind of hit the ground running yet, but he's a quality player, so I think we'll see more of him as the season goes on.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so an interesting one. Liverpool. Liverpool picked up another win. They find themselves at the top of the table. They pulled off a win against an in-form West Ham team. They had to do it the hard way once again, with Fornells getting on the score sheet for West Ham. Young, what was his name? Nat Phillips, is it?
Yeah.
He came in off the back of a a season-long loan at Stuttgart, I want to say.
That's right. Yeah.
He was exceptional. He got Jamie Carragher's man of the match. I mean, I don't know. I think any time Jamie Carragher gets the option to give a young Liverpudlian centre back a sniff of a man of the match award. He's in there kind of thing, but he did
it with Cody, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And so they were very good. And what was your take from this match, Rob?
I don't know. Liverpool are still not firing on all cylinders. I think there's a little bit of a change brewing at the top end of the team in terms of the forward three. I mean, we saw Jotter. He started to show some really good form, and showing that in that team he's playing really well. I mean, he came on and he was he was very good. Defensive wise, obviously they conceded that goal, and Nat Phillips' first full game really for Liverpool in the Premier League like that, and he did really well. And I think that we with getting through these games, I mean, we've got a big test coming up against Manchester City this weekend. I'd be happy with a draw, to be honest with you, because I don't know. It depends on how Jurgen Klopp sets out the team, how he approaches the game. I really don't know, but they're very frustrating to watch. So I watched the game, and it was very, very frustrating. They just look a little bit disjointed. But Mo Salah, I mean, he just keeps doing it. He's a machine, isn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's I know, much to your disgust.
I know.
But you can't fault him. And I think to keep him in your fantasy football team, you'd be mad to take him out at the moment. And the other flip side of that is Mane. And Mane's kind of misfiring at the moment, but he's recovering from COVID. There's a few different things, I think, with him that we might see in the next few weeks, him coming into his own again. But
do you think, well, this is what we were going to get on to. Do you think the lack of Firmino form is affecting Mane and Salah? Or, I mean, I know Mane gets a lot from Robertson as well, and we talked about the possibility that Alexander-Arnold and Robertson aren't going to be able to be as attacking at the moment with Van Dijk being out. So, I mean, the interesting one for me is Diego Jota. And, we see him here in at 6.3 million in the game. And a lot of people were scratching their heads at I think when they spent the money they did on this guy, but he's he's currently owned by 3.4% of the game, and
that'll change, I think.
I mean, he's in as a midfielder as well. Do you think it's a possibility that he could kind of push Firmino out of the team in a minute, or do you think Klopp is too loyal?
I would see. No, I got dragged into this kind of mindset on the weekend, and I was talking to some of the other Liverpool fans, that are part of our TASL group. I wonder if it might be a knee jerk just to stick him in now. And I think that one of the reasons he's had such an impact is he's been brought on fresh legs against tiring teams. And I just wonder if that might be to his advantage. Not saying
and whether that's going to be his role for the season, perhaps.
Possibly, yeah. And they got Xherdan Shaqiri as well, who's had some good games for Liverpool. He's made a difference when he's come on.
He has, yeah.
So I don't know. I think it'd be unfair to just get rid of him to move Firmino out now. just for the sake of a few games where he hasn't performed particularly well.
Mm.
You know, we've got to give him a chance.
And you feel like you feel like it certainly won't be happening away at Manchester City either.
No, definitely not. I think we need to stick with Firmino on that one.
I'm
go tried and tested.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that one. I was also reading as well that they reckon Matip is back in full training. Does he get the nod over Nat Phillips despite his display?
No, I don't think he should. I think they should stick with Nat Phillips. I think if he's
Do you think he will?
well in that next game, I don't know. I genuinely don't. You never know with Klopp because he's had a habit in the past of throwing some kids in at big games. He's done it in the past, and I don't give him the chance. I say.
Okay, well, that'll be an interesting game to watch next week. I mean, do you think as well, the final thing I wanted to touch on for this game is Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, these premium defenders. I mean, I was the person banging on how both of them were essential or to have both of them. You know, I was more than happy to double up with both of these guys at the start of the season. And for me, I was feeling like they're going to be there for the whole season. For me, I feel like, you know, these guys are staying. They're going to get clean sheets. They're going to get goals. They're going to get assists, and it's just a no-brainer with the price they're at. But already, obviously, I dropped Trent through my wild card, and spoiler alert, Robertson's gone. Robertson is gone. I feel like I need the money elsewhere in my team. It was I had 2 free transfers this week, and I made quite a quick decision on Robertson because it wouldn't surprise me if he suffers a price drop with the fact they are away at Man City. It's an interesting one, and I mean, do you think Trent and Robertson are going to start seeing managers just absolutely ship them out over the next couple of game weeks?
I mean, we've talked about this on the last few times we've done this about the defenders that, like we said earlier on, you've got Wolves and you've got Arsenal seem to be doing all right in terms of defence. The rest of them are shipping goals left, right, and centre. So you've got your premium defenders in on the chance that they might, score a goal or set something up. But majority of the time at the moment, Robertson's scoring 2. He's not really providing that kind of assist. So at the start of the season, I went Robertson instead of Arnold. And as time's gone on, I've been looking around. The defenders are just not doing it, and I shipped him out exactly the same as you. I've been trying to plot this for the last few weeks, but a couple of things have come in, so I couldn't do it. But I've moved him out and moved someone else in with the hope of being able to put it into the midfield and the attack somewhere.
I mean, just to put it in perspective, his ICT index. Now we've not really touched on many of these things, but statistics within the game. So, I mean, the ICT index, essentially, it's specifically designed to assess a player as an FPL asset. So it combines the influence, the creativity, and the threat scores. The idea being that you get, this index of how threatening these players are and how likely they are to score points, I guess. He is number 1 out of all defenders for the ICT rank, and he's 25 overall in the whole game. So it could come back to bite us. He's still got a selected by percentage of 18.7, and let's just hope that both of us don't come back to regret that decision, I guess.
Yeah, no, but those stats, we've had 2 games since Van Dijk went out, and as you said there about them changing maybe their attacking tendencies, we haven't really had a chance for that to settle in yet.
No, so, very true, very true, and we'll have to keep an eye on that one, I guess. But we had a 7-goal thriller, which didn't look like it was going to turn into a 7-goal thriller for the first game on Sunday, Aston Villa versus Southampton. Now, Aston Villa, they went on a very good run the first few games, and then over the last couple of weeks now, they've gone on to concede 3 at home to Leeds and 4 at home to Southampton. James Ward-Prowse, our very cleverly titled episode name, of course. He scored 2 free kicks in this game. He also picked up the assist for the Vestergaard goal. And he's in doing so, he's broken Matt Le-Tissier's free kick record for Southampton. So well done to him. I did look in, actually, Rob, I forgot to mention this to you. I looked into what do you actually have to do to become a saint? And have you ever looked at this? And
No.
so, I mean, first and foremost, I didn't realize that you can't really become a saint while you're alive. So, I mean, first and foremost, we're a little bit premature with that one. And the second one, the second main one, is that you have to you have to perform at least 2 miracles. Some exceptions can be made on one miracle based on how miraculous said miracle was. But yeah, so I'm thinking maybe the Euros, England, James Ward-Prowse in the final, double free kick to win it. I mean, that would be pretty miraculous. That would be pretty miraculous, right?
It would be. And in the last World Cup, they worked on their free kicks. You know, that was a big thing, wasn't it, from Southgate? That they had this free kick practice where they had a train. You remember they all holding onto each other's shoulders as they ran into the pond.
Yeah.
So
the love train, the England love train. Yeah.
So he would. I mean, if they won it, he would potentially be a saint.
Yeah. Well, I also looked, and it usually can only happen at least 5 years after they die. So maybe there'd have to be some kind of tragic accident just to make just to make the title of our podcast work. But let's not rule anything out. Well done to him.
I've just got some news there. Sorry, Phil. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, go ahead.
You know, we've just been talking about Jotter and Alexander-Arnold, and this shows how little we know. Jotter scored in the 16th minute, and Alexander-Arnold set him up. So there we go.
There we are.
Don't pay any attention to any of the.
So this is against Atalanta in the Champions League, right?
Atalanta. Yeah. I think he's just made his
case for the Man City game. I mean, has he started ahead of Firmino then, didn't he? Interesting. And looks like Nat.
I believe. Let me just have a look at the lineups.
Yeah, and it looks like Williams got the nod at the back.
Yeah, he started. Yeah, Reece Williams, Gomez, Robertson.
Well, I mean, there we go. Anything could happen. Klopp is unpredictable, but I mean, Danny Ings got
young kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and good for him. I do like to see that. So Danny Ings scored a beauty and picked up a knee injury. Now we've made it very. I mean, I think I made the comment on the weekend in our TASL chat. You know, I feel like outside of Arsenal, he's currently by far my favourite player in the league, Danny Ings. He just looks like an absolute goal machine. He looks like he's going to score every time he gets the ball. And, you know, I look at him and think, wow, at Arsenal at the moment, you know, would I take him over Lacazette? Probably, yeah. He's a real interesting one. I wonder whether he's going to have a Jamie Vardy style burst towards this end of his career in terms of, you know, his late 20s, and whether he can keep fit and carry it on now. Let's just keep our fingers crossed, I guess, that his knee injury isn't too serious. The signs are positive at the moment.
Yeah, I really feel sorry for him, actually, because he's such a talented player, and for that to have had all those injuries at Liverpool, and then for that to have happened on the weekend, I really felt for him, actually.
Walcott, Walcott picked up another assist, which was interesting. We did tip him in our transfer watch list, but then out of nowhere, Villa just decided to pop up with 3 goals, and Grealish basically did it on his own. Picking up a couple of assists and scoring a goal himself. It was a bizarre goal that he scored. He just seemed to completely catch it just right to miss sight McCarthy in the goal, or McCarthy just couldn't miss sight. That's terrible English, but you know, McCarthy was just completely wrong-footed by the shot, and yeah, Villa ended up scoring 3, but still picked up no points. So I mean, no good for my Martinez and Konza at the back, but I mean,
no.
those Grealish owners will definitely been happy with. I think it was a 15-point haul in the end for him. So
yeah.
No,
I had the same problem with Martinez because I had him in goal as well, and just like you're saying, he got absolutely.
Not a lot he could have done about the goals, but worth one to watch. Newcastle, they picked up a win against Everton, who failed again. And I guess the main taking away from this game is, Wilson picked up a double, and so he's going to be one to keep an eye on now. And Calvert, he's number 4 out of the ICT threat index. Influence creativity threat index. He's number 4 out of all strikers now, and he's up to 6 Premier League goals, albeit a few of those have been penalties. But
who's that now? Sorry,
Callum Wilson.
Lewin, did you say?
No, Callum Wilson.
Callum
Wilson, that is, yeah. So interesting. Calvert-Lewin, I think, lucky to pick up a couple of bonus points in the end with his late goal, but I think indicative of the way the game went, and there wasn't a lot of quality. Also, we saw Robin Olsen. I thought he was going to blank for me as well. Actually, I thought Calvert-Lewin was going to blank. I mean, let's not complain, Rob, because at that stage we absolutely needed the points. yeah, we did. Yeah, it wasn't looking good. Also, Ancelotti finally made the chop on young Pickford, and Robin Olsen came in. So interesting. Be interesting to see from an England perspective, because if Olsen makes that shirt his own, and he's not getting games for Everton, will Southgate still stick by him? I hope not, because I don't think he's good enough for England. No. I don't know if there's going to be many England people or fans listening, but I just don't think he's good enough. I think there are other options myself. I do agree. I do tend to agree. The problem is that Burnley aren't playing well, so Pope's getting a bit of a hammering, and Henderson isn't playing for United. So actually, that's an odd one. I don't understand that. Why they're not using Henderson? I mean, because Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's season starts next week. I thought that you might want to give Henderson a crack. Not that we're saying that it's the goalkeeper's fault for the reason their season keeps being put back a week. But I think it's something you'd consider, isn't it? It should be. I mean, Arsenal came away with the win. Obviously, that's the first time in a long time that they've beaten one of the so-called top 6 sides away from home. So it's good signs for Arteta, and defensively they look in an excellent unit at the moment. They still got a Rick in them. Well, that's the Aubameyang. He signed a new deal and just stopped scoring. Yeah, it was such a big thing for him to sign that deal. He's like, right, I'm done now. I've got my deal. I'm not putting it in anymore. You said they've changed his position, didn't you? Yeah, well, he's obviously playing on the left wing as he has done for a while now. I'd like to see him play through the middle with Pepe coming in and having a bit more of a role in the team for Lacazette. But I mean, it's almost. I mean. I don't think you could take a lot away from the fact that we've kind of played these 3 away. I mean, Man United away, Man City away, Liverpool away. I mean, like I just said, Arsenal haven't won away from home in a long time against these teams. And, you don't expect Arteta to put a team out that's going to create a huge amount against these guys. I mean, I imagine he's going to be thinking to himself, well, we need to be good at the back to give ourselves a chance here. And my kind of take on it before the game was the key players for Arsenal were going to be Bellerin and Saka. And, us playing as kind of these wing backs, they need to be good in attack and in defence with Rashford and Greenwood playing. But in the end, it was just an all-round exceptional performance from every Arsenal player on the pitch. Gabriel, how did he get on? Unbelievable. I mean, this guy, 22 years old, for sure one of the signings of the season at the moment, to come in and fit seamlessly into a Premier League from France. He's aggressive. He tackles. I've watched Arsenal so many times in the past where I'm just watching going, please somebody make a tackle. Please somebody try and dispossess somebody with the ball. And we're doing that now, and it's good to see. Partey looks an absolute dream in the midfield, and long may it continue, really.
Well, the cross between Vieira and De Bruyne, you mean? Is that
absolutely? Yeah, he is the new De Vieira. Yeah, definitely. So it's a one to keep an eye on. And I think in terms of FPL assets, you can look at the defense, but maybe Bellerin is the one to watch here, because, I mean, he's the guy that, is getting forward. He picked up the assist. He got tackled, awful tackle by Pogba. I mean, he admitted he felt bad for making such a stupid mistake, in his words, that is. And Man United were just terrible, weren't they? I mean, they were slow. They didn't have any answers to the Arsenal press, and it's worrying for United, because, I mean, we've touched on this a lot, and I don't just want to come on this podcast every week and just absolutely slag Man United off to the hilt. But at what point? I mean, our TASL chat at one point, somebody actually had to ask, has Ole Gunnar Solskjaer been sacked, with the way we were talking about who can replace him? But I mean, at what point does that become a reality? I mean, Roy Keane was absolutely scathing after the game, as he usually, I mean, let's be honest, scathing is usually his go-to kind of mode, regardless of what he's seen. Yeah. But I mean, how long does Ole get now?
You see, I'm torn here between this answer. So if I put a neutral hat on, I would say, if I was to put a United fan or a neutral hat on, I would say they need to remove him as quick as possible. And he shouldn't. You see, he had such a good end to the last season, didn't he? We've talked about that a little bit, and
they need consistency, though. Don't they
need consistency, don't they? And I mean, it was the second coming in midweek where they were beating. In the Champions League, where they beat RB, was it RB Leipzig?
Oh yeah, that was yeah.
They beat them convincingly, and they changed their formation. It was all fine and dandy, and then they're just not convincing. And I think you've said before, he's not in that kind of elite level of managers, is he? Not really.
No.
And I just think that if I was a United fan, I'd be looking to move him on. And we've talked there, because we were talking about the different managers that can replace him. So we had people like Pochettino, Allegri, Nuno Espirito Santos, who I thought actually was a really good shout, considering what he's doing at Wolves. There's all these other managers out there which would give United that kind of, I don't know, just freshen up a little bit. And I've said it reminds me a little bit of what happened with Liverpool after the around the Souness era, and the time after Dalglish left, and they would just seem to be bouncing from poor decision to poor decision. And they've gone back to Solskjaer, and they're trying to recreate what they had during the 90s and noughties with that winning streak. And it's...
I mean, look, it's going to sound like a really strange thing to say, and I have the feeling that you'll through gritted teeth, agree with me with what I'm about to say, but this is coming from an Arsenal fan. I feel like if I was a Man United fan, I'd be feeling like I deserve better. I think that Man United fans deserve better than kind of the way Ed Woodward runs the club, but also, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think the players they've got there, they've got some really good players, and I think if all of a sudden Man United were going to do a fire sale, there would be plenty of top teams coming in for a number of their first team squad. But they just haven't got the person that can get them to play together. And obviously there's stuff going on in the background we're not privy to as well. But I feel like Man United deserve a bit better. I mean, let's be honest, at the same time, they've earned a bit of trauma and a bit of bad times given the success they've had in the past. But if I was a Man United fan, I'd be expecting more.
I don't understand. You see, they went from someone like Alex Ferguson, who enjoyed free-flowing football, and they were a good footballing side, weren't they? But then went to David Moyes, who was in charge when he was in charge of Everton, quite a defensive team, very
pragmatic.
Pragmatic. And then they went to Louis van Gaal, who was defensive team, quite pragmatic. And then Jose Mourinho, the same again. And then they move on to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who I don't think he has a particular style or a pedigree in any way. So when you look at it, it just seems like an odd set of choices. They've just gone with the big names, and then they've gone with someone who they feel is part of the the United way, they keep saying, don't they? But it's,
and I mean, as a result of all this, Rob,
out.
as a result of all this, I mean, there's no real FPL assets in that Man United team at the moment.
No, none at all. Bruno Fernandes is running out of penalties. I think he's done his quota for the year.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jotter's just scored again. So there we go.
Well, there we are. Breaking news. So we have been chatting away, and we have still got quite a bit to cover. Spurs did well. They picked up a win against Brighton. Bale came off the bench to register his first return since coming back. Obviously, Kane won a very contentious penalty. I mean, look, we could probably spend half an hour talking about VAR decisions again, but once again, Kane is looking like an extremely valuable. I felt at the start of the season that he was quite cheap. If he'd get off to a good start. Bale is going to be interesting now to see if he gets a bit of a run as well.
I was going to say the good thing is the season didn't start in August, so there's that whole thing where Kane didn't score many in August.
Yeah, he got his voodoo month out of the way.
Yeah, I think he's essential now. He's looking essential. Whether Bale now starts to come into his own, that'll be interesting to see.
It will be interesting to see. And 2 games last night. I wonder how many people paid £15 to watch Fulham versus West Brom. What do you reckon?
I'm not many. I'm guessing.
I mean, like what? 8 maybe?
Yeah,
9 at a push.
Yeah, 9. Yeah. And that was probably the backroom stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've got literally nothing to say about this game. No. Mitrovic picked up a couple of assists, but I could not be less interested in having. I have no idea. I remember we could have a quick look.
Because he is the
8.3%.
Right. Okay.
So there we are. I mean, I couldn't have less an interest in Fulham and West Brom assets in my team, to be quite honest. From 2 teams where I have next to no interest in having players in my team, to a team that should be attracting all FPL managers' interest, and that's Leicester, who I think won their 4th away game on the trot, which is some kind of record for them. And they just go from strength to strength. Vardy and Barnes, particularly in the first half, looked exceptional. And where Leeds looked like they were going to drag themselves back into the game, Maddison came off the bench and just absolutely took it away from them. Yeah.
No, I mean, it looked like it was going to be a cracker right at the beginning. Bamford missed a sitter, and then it went up the other. And scored. And Vardy's just fantastic, isn't he?
He's brilliant. Better than Drogba. Definitely better than Drogba.
Better than Drogba. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree with you.
So I mean, I think it's exciting times for Leicester, and considering the injuries they've had, keeping their players fit and, juggling the Europa League and all the other competitions that they're involved in as well, that'll be the key for them moving forward. So lots of interest in Leicester players. If Under starts getting some regular starts, I think that could be interesting. I think James Maddison's definitely going to get returns once he starts playing regularly. And, Vardy will be furious at the fact that they had yet another penalty that Tielemans put away after he'd been subbed off.
Yeah. I think he's another one of those players who the game quite sure run a game just coming up. But he's one that will score against any team. He's not someone who is like opposition specific, is he? Let's talk about Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson doesn't seem to do it against certain clubs, but Vardy does it against everyone.
And he seems to enjoy it even more against the big clubs at times.
He does, yeah. He's just a thorn in their side. I think he's just an agitator, isn't he?
He is indeed. He is indeed. Very good result for Leicester. Well done to them. And get those Leicester players in your team, ladies and gents. I mean, I just want to say that apologies if you lost either myself or Rob over the last couple of minutes. There has been a slightly dodgy connection on my end. Obviously, we're still living the Zoom meeting calls dream. Obviously, other online meeting calls are available, but that's the one we're using right now. And so, yeah, apologies if that might have come through a bit funny the last couple of minutes. But I mean, we've pretty much made it to the end. We just got a couple of topics at the end to wrap things up as always. We forgot to mention Max Killman, an interesting one. He becomes the first player since Chris Smalling to move directly from non-league to the Premier League. And he's got quite an interesting backstory where he played 25 times for the England futsal national team. And that's kind of been put on hold for him after moving from Maidenhead to Wolves.
Yeah,
so good for him. Also, he comes from parents of half Russian, half Ukrainian. Parents, and he speaks Russian in addition to English, so good for him. I had fun reading his Wikipedia page earlier. You touched on this one earlier, and probably James Rodriguez was touching on this frequently over the weekend. Kendra Lust, the porn star, wished James good luck and a speedy recovery for his testicle injury. I think we can read into that one whatever you would like, Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think apparently Van Dijk did it, didn't he? Is that what?
Well, maybe after the game, was it?
I'm not quite sure. He is Dutch, you know. So you never know, do you?
I think we'll leave that one there. I think we'll leave that one there before we become libelous. We had an interesting one. Some ESPN reporters were caught out with their recording still on, ripping into Harry Kane. Now, as much as I'd like to see this, it's not a done thing, is it?
No, it's a bit rude.
It's a bit rude. It's a bit inappropriate. I mean, he didn't come across great for me in the documentary they did on Amazon, but they were left a little bit red-faced when this has been leaked onto the internet. Which I'm sure you can go and have a search for ESPN Harry Kane blooper, I guess, if you're interested in that one. The final one is a bit of an interesting one, and it's happened close to home for us. Obviously, we're both South Wales based, and unfortunately, Ryan Giggs is not going to be coaching or managing the next 3 Wales international games, as he is, I quote, cooperating with the police over an alleged assault charge. So that's a bit of an interesting one that's come out the blue there, Rob. I mean, how do you think this is potentially could affect the Welsh players in the next international break? Do you see a rally, or do you think they'll be okay?
You just don't know with stuff like this, and it's they're doing quite well at the moment. I think they're top of their group, and the World Cup is the one that they've been to the Euros now. This will be the second Euros coming up in 21. The World Cup is the one they need to get to, because it's been since 58, I think. So I just hope it doesn't derail them, because he's away for 3 games. And they've been okay. I don't think they've been pulling up trees as a team, but I just hope that it doesn't stop them. I hope it doesn't derail them from getting that World Cup qualification, or at least being in the mix towards the end. Because I'd really like to see Wales get to the World Cup. I think it'd be great for the country
and the fans absolutely. We've got a great load of mates down here who obviously are huge Wales international fans, and so I hope the situation just pans out okay for the team, really, more than anything else, because what people get up to in their private lives is no concern of ours, and I hope the players are still able to perform on the pitch for all the Welsh fans, because they bloody love it when they do well, and rightly so. So yeah, that's it, Rob. We've made it to another week. I've enjoyed it tonight, so thanks for your company. Do you know what, Rob? I ask everybody every week if they can like, subscribe, share, all that kind of nonsense. I'm not going to do it this week because, quite frankly, if they're still listening by this point, 49-ish minutes into our chat, then good for them, and for me, that is enough. Please feel free to drop us any comments. Feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter at PGR Hawkins. If there's anything you particularly want us or would like us to discuss in the next week's episode, we will more than welcome those, and we will of course oblige. So yeah, nice one, Rob. Thanks very much. Same time next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see you next week.
Take it easy, mate. Ta-ra.
Take care. Bye.